Hey everyone, welcome to this instructional video where I'll be showing you how to play the song It Don't Mean a Thing as a solo fingerstyle acoustic guitar arrangement. One thing I want to make clear at the start of this video before going into any tuition is that I based my performance of this piece on a Doyle Dykes arrangement, of which I'll put a link to in the video description below. So Doyle's one of my favourite fingerstyle acoustic guitarists, and I've wanted to play this piece ever since I saw him perform it. What I did was I tried to watch quite closely and listen to what he was doing and emulate a lot of what's going on in the verse and chorus sections. I then also added in a lot of my own stuff from scratch, so it ended up as about a 50-50 split. That said, I would still give Doyle Dykes full credit for this arrangement because the core idea is based around what he's doing. I'll also make it clear as I break down the various sections of the arrangement which parts I tried to copy directly, which parts I vaguely copied and put my own spin on, and which parts I did myself totally from scratch. I think generally it's a really good way of learning to find guitarists, players who you like and admire, and try and study what they're doing in this way. The idea isn't to learn note for note necessarily, or from tab. It's to try and get a broader understanding of what the player who you're trying to learn from is doing, and incorporating a lot of those techniques and stylistic elements into your own playing whilst keeping your own individuality. So that's really what I was going for here in this arrangement. So the intro section isn't based on Doyle's arrangement at all. It's something I came up with, and it's got a bluesy feel to it. So I'll quickly play it. That's the start. So I'm not going to elaborate too much on this intro section because it's not based on anything from the original song. What I would more encourage is for you guitarist players to try and come up with something original before going into the verse of the song. So that's what I did here. I was originally going to put something shorter in before going into the first verse, something like this. Which you could well do. I ended up playing this, which I'll play through slowly for you. You can also slow down the video playback speed here if that helps. So in the spirit of what I talked about at the very start of this video, a lot of this intro is based around Stevie Ray Vaughan's style bluesy licks. So Stevie Ray Vaughan was a guitarist who I really got into for a while and learned a lot of the licks and ideas of what he did, particularly in like the open E positions, this kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. So here there's a semitone slide. Grab the thumb on the E string 4th fret. Little finger on the D string 6th fret. A chord. Then this is like a chromatic bass run. So it goes from the A chord to this chord. So you've got the A sharp, and then like an A7. So then a B7, So then a slide a tone up. Here you want the open 2 top strings as well. So then grab that bass note, so the 4th fret E. Then you move that shape back a tone with the bass still on the low E string. Then that bass line. Then this bass note, 2nd fret E string. Here you can finger this in a couple of different ways, or doesn't matter. Then there's that, which is just the low and high E strings with the B string. Then this is a classic blues lick, which you'll hear in countless blues recordings. So it goes, I have to play it in context. This is such a common lick you can put into any blues progression, really. It's just chromatic, down, semitone, down, semitone. Pull off from the 2nd fret G string, 2nd fret D string, hammer on 1st fret G string. Open E, low E, slide to that E. Whole tone slide. Again, that's a Stevie Ray Vaughan style lick. Then you've got pull off from the 3rd fret E string. Pull off from the 5th to the 3rd fret B string. Back to this shape. Then like that. So as I've already said, it could be worth here trying to put something original in. There's countless number of blues licks you could do here. It then goes into the verse, which is in a minor key. So I went from a blues tonality to a minor tonality, which I think works fine. You could also play an intro more in the E minor key. That's what key the song's in, E minor. That would give you a completely different feel, but I quite liked transitioning from the bluesy style opening to the minor tonality in the verse. So as I said, I watched what Doyle Dykes was doing with this, but I ended up playing it quite a bit differently. So the idea is you're going to be using a lot of open strings, which in fingerstyle is always what you want to try and do, because it's easier to move about and you're going to get much more mileage out of the entire guitar the more open strings you can use. So the first note is a B, and it's like it, the word it in the song for the vocal line. It, don't, like that. Okay, so what I noticed Doyle Dykes was playing here was, I think, this. And and jumping right up from that E minor shape, which is the most common on the 2nd fret, to here, which is the minor E minor shape, all the way up on the 9th fret, or the 7th fret to the 9th fret. So that's the minor bar chord shape, but it's using the open E and then playing from the D down. So that's one way you could play it. And I did originally start to learn the piece that way, but I found that it was really hard to get a smooth transition there. And what I found easier was playing it this way, like this. What we're doing here, the melody note goes to the 7th fret on the high E string. And the picking pattern at this point is octaves between the E and the D, low E string. And then for the bass note at this point, you can grab that G note here, which is obviously from E minor. So it's the 3rd in E minor, so that works as a bass note. You can play the open E melody note here, or I was playing it on the B string 5th fret. Like that. And the picking pattern remains the same. Then you've got here, and then this is just a chromatic half step down. So I'll show you the fingering. So you've got 11th fret B string, then you've got the 9th fret G string, then 8th fret on the D string, and then with the thumb playing the low E string on the 8th fret. It's kind of like a diminished triad. Down a half step. Then, except using this finger, so. Then we're using a lot of open strings. So from the top, there, you need to remember to grab the B, so it goes, the bass goes E, B, like that, with the thumb on the 7th fret. You can put in a different picking pattern when it goes to this chord here, like this. Something like that, or just keep the bass going. The next chord I played like this. When I was watching the Doyle Dykes arrangement, the camera's on a bit of a funny angle, so I couldn't see exactly what he's doing. That in a way was good though, because it forced me to interpret what was being played and not be tempted to try and copy note for note. So here it seemed to me that Doyle was playing a slide, but I ended up just playing like that. So you've got all 3 fingers, kind of like an A chord on the 2nd fret, but on the 5th fret, with an open E as well. So the melody note's kind of like this. And then the bass is this. A, G, E, G. Then this shape, which is a D, 7 shape. And then you want the same bass alternating pattern. 5th fret. So then a G major, which we're playing like that. So in my previous instructional videos for fingerstyle pieces, I talk a lot about using the thumb. So I'll not sound like a scratch record and go on about it again here, but you can see how often it's being used already. And it's so useful for any fingerstyle playing. So G major, like that, because the transition between these chords is fairly simple. Then we've got this. Slide with the middle finger, I think, is the easiest. Open B, open A, G, F sharp. I played this picking pattern here, so far we've got Then we've got, I don't think I'm playing this exactly as Doyle did, but the idea is that you get a slightly dissonant bass because you put it down a semitone like this. And then you're using the open G string here as a bass note, which is quite unusual and not something that is very common. Thus, this part of the arrangement took a little bit of work for me. Like that. Open E to 2nd fret D string. 1st fret D string. Open G. So that's the first part. Then it's to, the melody goes to high E string on the 7th fret. Open D string now as the bass note. Then the open G again. And this is the same thing, it's down a semitone, so the D would be here, fretted on the A string, 5th fret. We're playing it open on the D string, but we're playing that C sharp here on the 4th fret A string. So you've got now here, what I realised after a while was that I wasn't staying on that bass note long enough, because the next chord is further up the neck. So what I would say here is try and make a conscious effort to stay with this bass note resonating, ringing out as long as possible, but not too long so that you can't get to the next chord in time. Which is back to this. So this part now is the same as what we played the first time through. So I'll not show that again. Then, similar to the first time through, but slightly different. This is now more closely emulating the vocals in the original song. So that's the melody's going. Two. So. Like that. So the picking pattern for the bass alternates still. Then to the G. Then there's this nice little lick which falls under the fingers nicely within the chord shape. So that is quite a common major style guitar lick that you'd hear, which could be turned into a blues lick. But it falls nicely into the picking pattern of this chord. And you're just playing octaves with the thumb. Here. So I'll just show you the shapes of these chords. Also, I noticed that the way Doyle plays it the first time through is keeping the boom chick bass style going, like this. So we'll start with a semitone in, so that's the same shape moved up 1 fret, and it's like you play a G major, so both fingers on the 4th fret E and B string, then 1 back on the G string to the 3rd fret, and then again on the D string 4th fret, and then when you move it up, grab the G bass with your thumb like that. So I played it like this. Rhythmically. Then back into the picking there. Because that meant the ability to play nice full 5-note chords. So that's the first chord. Then there's this. So A on the 5th fret E string, then here G on the D string 5th fret, then you've got here 4th fret G string, and then barred on the E and B, high E and B 3rd fret, like that. Here is a lovely chord, which this is a chord like a dominant 7th chord that I play quite a lot in like jazz pieces. So that would be a 7 derivative. But this chord has got the A sharp on the bass, which is quite tricky to finger. So I had to work again quite a bit of this. But I was trying to play comping like that. So we're playing 5 strings. And this is a nod to more of the jazz origins of the song, because it turns quite jazzy when you do it like this. The next chord, so B, open D, open G, and then 3rd fret, you fret the B and the high E string like that. So we've got, then C6, like that. I've mentioned this before in previous videos, I like to play this chord with the little finger, but I think most people play it like that. But all it is the bass note, which is the C, and then flat, 2 frets up, like that. So the major would be, and comped again as a 5-note chord. Then you've got this. So that's back to the G major. That's hammering on the 3rd. Then open B and G with the C bass, and you can add the 3rd of the C major here as well, which is 2nd fret D string, or not, up to you. So this whole section can be comped and played rhythmically like I did, or finger picked in the same style as we've been playing in the verse up until this point. Or there's then a little bass run, G to G sharp, and I picked this like that. But you could just play. Then a slide, which I think I did a whole tone slide, but you could do a half tone, or so that's alternating still between the A and the E bass. So it's just a bar on the 5th fret with then middle finger fretted on the 6th fret G string, and then hammer on from the 5th fret to the 6th string on the high E string, like that. Now that is that dominant 7 shape that I talked about earlier. So bar, full bar on the 7th fret with the 8th fret G string fretted like that. Then hammer on the B string, 8th fret, and take it off again like that. All whilst keeping the bass finger picking pattern going. And then we're back into the verse. Then we're doing the same descending bass pattern we did in the verse previously. So that's the same, don't need to go over that again. And this is too. Remember, you can subtly change up the picking patterns here though, to add variation. Here, it plays something slightly different. So, it's similar to when we were playing this previously, on the 5th fret, all 3 fingers there, on the D, G and B strings, but now we're going to play it like an A minor, but on the 5th fret, or the 4th fret, starting on the 4th fret, with the 1st finger. And that's the pattern. So we're again alternating the bass. So that's the melodies going from the open E to the high B on the 7th fret. here. So that's like a D9, dominant 7th derivative or variation. So here, so you've got this shape, barred, so these 3 barred with the 3rd finger, middle finger on that D string 5th fret, sorry, A string 5th fret, 2nd finger on the D string 4th fret, and then the bar, and then 6th fret to 5th fret, the high E string. And here, the bass goes like that. Then the G major that we've already played. Starting with the A, high A note there, to put, then take it off. So that whole section would be now here, you can play the bass like that, or grab the 5th of the chord. That's more tricky with a little finger. So I'll leave that one up to you. Then the B7 chord here, but starting with the high G note. So there, like that. So that's the fingering there. So B, then here, D string, 1st fret. With the middle finger you've got on the G string, 2nd fret, open B, then with the little finger, high G on the 3rd fret, top E string like that. Then just pull that back like that. And then again, grab that bass note, so physically above the B, so the F sharp, like that. And then stop it. This is now the solo section of the song, and here, this is all stuff I came up with. It's really good practice here, and something you can incorporate into really any fingerstyle piece where you want to put a solo in, to keep a drone note going and then play the scale. So it's not too different from playing solo stuff on electric guitar, where, say if you're in E minor, all that stuff, if you can learn to add a drone to it like this. Stuff like that is what I was going for here. So all E minor. I'm not going to break down exactly what I played for this part, because this is where I would suggest trying that style of improv I've just outlined and trying to keep the rhythm of it. So you need to also be counting the beats in your head if you can. And this is a really key skill to develop playing fingerstyle, is working on an internal metronome. So I very, very seldom play with a metronome fingerstyle, because I like the option to slip into more of a rubato style, so freely. And I sometimes find playing with a metronome really keeps things rigid. Some people prefer to play with a metronome, but I know a lot of the best, in fact most of the top fingerstyle guitarists don't use one when they're performing, obviously because it wouldn't sound very good. Whether they use one when they're practicing, it's difficult to know, but I haven't seen it very often. I suppose it's up to the individual. But having an internal metronome where you can count the beats in your head is really important. What I do when I'm improvising in this style is I always like to add a 5th where it should come on the 4th bar. So if I'm playing in E, for example, so here you're improving. If you could learn how to do that, then you can throw that stuff in to any arrangement. I will just show you how I finished this solo section and came back out into the verse section again, because this might be quite helpful. So we're droning on an open E, on an E minor. So this is a E minor chord. That's just moving notes up an E minor scale, if you like, into chords. This shape here, this minor shape, I always use and I find it really helpful, because you could use that in the context of other chords, like a and then we're finishing with the 12th fret, so that's the octave of the B, the G and the E strings open. Then open strings, the old trick of going a half step into the chord. And then here I repeated the intro section. When I got to this part, here I played a little lick. And then that B there takes you back into the verse section, which is in the E minor. And here I played that E minor shape, because you're already then in this position. So that was the thinking. And we're using on this lick the open strings and pulling off. See how many open strings there are being used there, which is a really useful technique when playing in keys like E major or E minor. Because there, you're pulling off to notes which are all from the E minor chord. So you're pulling off to the E, the B and the G strings, which are all in the E minor chord. So none of this I took from the Doyle Dykes arrangement. This was all my own stuff. But then when we come back into the verse again, it's going to follow a very similar pattern to the first verse and the first chorus as well. So we're starting on this E chord. That's just the 9th fret, middle 2 strings, 8th fret, B string, 7th fret, E, high E string. And then back to what we've been doing previously. And then this is the same as the first verse. Now here, I wanted to play something different. So here I put in a little lick. You don't have to do that. You could play the same thing that you played in the first verse or something else. You could even just stay on the G chord and pick that like this. Like this. So the next part is the same that we played in the first verse. Here as well. Here I played a little lick. That's a G major arpeggio, really. This is where being able to play some lead really helps, because you could throw it into your fingerstyle arrangements. So being able to play arpeggios is really helpful. I actually put one in the start of the solo section, which I haven't gone over, but that was an E minor arpeggio. Here. So playing arpeggios is just a great thing to be able to do in any style, really. So that's just, you slide up to the B. So it's over a G major, so it's a G major arpeggio. So that's a slide up to the third, the B, to the root. So then we're on the fifth, back to the third, and then the root. And then an open G, like that. So now we're into the chorus section again, and here I finger picked this the second time through. So I'm not going to go over that again, but remember there's a couple of different ways you can play that. Here, I played this very similar to the first time through, except here's the difference. First time through was, second time through. So we're just adding in an extra note when we're ascending up there. And the bass is still alternating. This is all based on what Doyle Dykes was playing in his arrangement, but not exactly. I was watching and trying to pick up what was going on and then coming up with it, but largely based on what Doyle's playing. Then here. Then, so this chord's played the same as the first time through, and then here, that's the melody just played on its own without the chord. Back to then here. Same thing we played in the run-up to the solo section. Then for this outro part, I'm not going to go through exactly what I played, because again there was a lot of improv style stuff in there, but you essentially want to resolve it to an E minor, and therefore you can play something in E minor to finish the song. So an easy way to end it would be, then you could play a harmonic or something. So I ended up playing E minor scales and arpeggios to finish it, with some harmonics as well. So I'm not going to go over the whole thing because it was just stuff I came up with, but it was based around this E minor shape here, and then also some harmonics here. And then this is inspired by classical music, where you have a descending scale in between the root note, like this. It's all that kind of stuff, really. So thanks again for listening. It's been a little bit of a whistle-stop tour through this arrangement. I do appreciate that. So what I'm doing here with these instructional videos is immediately following recording the performance, letting the camera run and shooting from the hip, just talking about it and explaining what I'm doing. So this video and the previous couple I've done are not scripted. As I said in those previous videos, what I'm really trying to do is offer something to anyone who's interested in learning this style, learning these arrangements. The caveat with this arrangement, which I've said multiple times, but I'll say again, is that this is a Doyle Dykes arrangement, essentially, which I've put my own take on, put my own spin on. So credit to Doyle Dykes for that, and his original performance video is in the link, the description to this video below. So thanks again for watching. I'll see you all again soon.